The story begins on a quiet night. A police officer named Jeffrey was out on his usual night duty. That's when two young men, Ryan and Kevin, approached him. But the truth was, Jeffrey had called Ryan and Kevin there to rob a shop. He even had a map that showed them the exact location. Ryan, who was an expert at picking locks, got into the shop without any difficulty. He then followed the map to find a hidden safe behind a wall. When he opened the safe, he discovered a large amount of cash. But there was also a motion sensor alarm inside, which got triggered as soon as the safe opened. News of the robbery quickly reached the police. Orders for arrest were issued immediately. Jeffrey, wanting to be the first one on the scene, rushed there. Once he arrived, he fired 2 bullets into his own police car. Just then, Kevin came out of the shop and was shocked to see what had happened. Before he could react or ask anything, Jeffrey suddenly shot him. Jeffrey then placed the gun he had used into Kevin's hand and forced Kevin's fingerprints onto it. His plan was to make it look like Kevin had fired in self-defense and that Jeffrey had no choice but to retaliate. When Ryan came out and saw this, he was furious. He began yelling and cursing at the officer, Jeffrey. But Jeffrey pinned Ryan to the wall at gunpoint and threatened to kill his wife and child if he said anything. Fearing for his family's safety, Ryan went silent and took all the blame to protect them. 10 years passed, and Ryan had now completed his prison sentence. As soon as he stepped out of jail, his old friend Frank was waiting for him. Frank tried to lift Ryan's spirits with some encouraging words and offered him a chance to use his lockpicking skills again. Ryan was hesitant. Being in prison had led to his locksmith license being revoked. But Frank had already set everything up for him, from a fully equipped workshop to a car. Reluctantly, Ryan agreed to give it a shot. In the past, he was an expert at unlocking any kind of safe or lock. But this time, he wasn't going to use his skills for illegal activities. A few days later, Ryan called his wife, Kate, who now worked as a detective. He asked if they could meet, and she agreed. It had been 10 long years since he'd last seen his wife and daughter, Lindsay. At the cafe, Kate asked Lindsay to go place an order so she could speak to Ryan privately. Ryan apologized for everything he had done, but he still kept the truth about Kevin's death to himself. Kate forgave him but told him that while he could be a father to their daughter, he couldn't be her husband anymore. Even so, being able to spend time with his daughter meant the world to Ryan. Deep down, he hoped that maybe someday Kate would take him back. The next morning, Frank woke Ryan up and reminded him to head to work. Ryan went to repair a lock at a luxurious house, where he met the homeowner, Garrett. Garrett said one of his employees, April, had told him about Ryan's impressive skills. Garrett offered Ryan a chance to get involved in illegal work, but Ryan turned him down right away. When he returned to his workshop, he was surprised to see April there waiting for him. April was actually Kevin's sister. She began telling Ryan about the hardships she was facing. Life had pushed her so far that she had done everything possible just to survive. Now, she desperately needed a large sum of money to escape her dark life. Ryan truly wanted to help her, but made it clear he would not do anything illegal. April got angry and accused Ryan of being responsible for her brother's death, accusing him of pretending to have changed. Frank, who had overheard their conversation, told Ryan not to let her words shake him. Even if Ryan felt guilty for Kevin's death, there were better ways to make things right. No matter how broken he felt, going back to crime wasn't the answer. The next day, while driving to work, Ryan was pulled over by a police car. Inside was the same corrupt officer, Jeffrey, the one responsible for putting him behind bars. Jeffrey threatened Ryan again, warning that if he opened his mouth, his life would be in danger. Although Jeffrey was nearing retirement, 2 junior detectives, Paris and John, were secretly monitoring Ryan. After Jeffrey left, Detective John beat Ryan badly, trying to scare him into silence. Then Detective Paris searched Ryan's car and found some lockpicking tools, ones commonly used by thieves. Because of this, Ryan was taken to the police station. But when their seniors reviewed the case, they realized that such minor evidence wasn't enough to send Ryan back to prison. Ryan's wife, Kate, was now interrogating him in the police station's interview room. She still couldn't understand why he'd gotten involved in criminal activity again. Ryan told her that everything was part of Jeffrey's plan. He had planted those tools while searching the car. They weren't his, they had been in the car ever since he got it from Frank. A while later, Ryan's senior officers arrived and dropped all the charges against him. But they made it clear that working as a locksmith without a license was illegal. He was told to renew his license before resuming work. Meanwhile, at the police station, Jeffrey's retirement party was underway. He called Kate into his office, offered her a glass of wine, and suggested she become the department head. Jeffrey also asked her to keep an eye on Ryan, just like the two junior detectives, so Ryan couldn't reveal the truth. Elsewhere, Ryan was busy practicing his lockpicking skills. It was obvious he still hadn't lost his touch. Then, he received a call from Kate, asking him to pick up their daughter, Lindsay, from school since she had something important to do. Ryan, thrilled to see his daughter, reached the school without delay. He picked up Lindsay and later took her to the park, where they sat and had lunch. During their chat, Lindsay asked about his work and requested to see a lock. It was probably the first time she had ever asked him for anything. Ryan brought her to his workshop and demonstrated a few lockpicking tricks. To his surprise, Lindsay managed to open a lock on her first try. Later that evening, Ryan dropped Lindsay off at the same party, Jeffrey's retirement celebration. There, Kate told Ryan that she had now officially become the department head. A short while later, Jeffrey approached Ryan and began threatening him again. But Ryan didn't respond. He simply shut his car door and drove away. When he returned to his workshop, April was already there waiting for him. She took the opportunity to once again pour out her troubles. Her boss, Jarrett, was a wealthy real estate mogul who forced her to do anything to further his business. April showed Ryan scars left by an angry client. She couldn't run away. If any deal fell through, she would be handed over to dangerous people. She needed a huge sum of money to escape that life. Ryan was moved by her pain. Eventually, he agreed to help. The next day, April gave him the location of Jarrett's mansion, where a party would be held that night. Ryan's task was simple: break into Jarrett's office and take the money. Back at the station, Kate had started reviewing an old case involving escorts. The case file had been poorly handled, and she soon realized that Jeffrey had intentionally buried it. That evening, Jarrett's lavish party began. Businessmen, government officials, and even some police officers were in attendance. Ryan entered the mansion in disguise, wearing a mask. April noticed him and purposely bumped into a waiter to create a distraction. As all eyes turned to April, Ryan quietly slipped into Jarrett's office. But Jeffrey was also at the party, and had already spotted Ryan. Inside the office, Ryan found a bag filled with money. Thankfully, he didn't even need to crack a safe. But just as things were going smoothly, Jeffrey entered. A struggle broke out between them. Ryan managed to grab Jeffrey's gun, but he couldn't fire it. Doing so would alert everyone at the party and get him caught. Killing Jeffrey now would only send him back to prison. So, Ryan grabbed the money and made a run for it. But on his way out, some guards blocked his path. Thinking quickly, he grabbed April and pointed the gun at her, pretending to take her hostage. As they reached the exit, he shoved April forward and jumped over a wall, escaping successfully. Jarrett was furious with Jeffrey. After all, he had been invited to provide security, yet the theft still happened. Jeffrey, now humiliated, vowed to find the thief and recover the stolen money. Back at the workshop, Ryan hid all the cash in Frank's safe. He tried calling April, but she didn't answer. Worried about her, he decided to go to her place. But when he arrived, everything inside her home was wrecked, and April was nowhere to be found. It looked like she had been kidnapped. Meanwhile, a woman named Tanya, one of April's colleagues, showed up at Kate's home. She handed over a pen drive containing hard evidence of Jarrett's crimes, including photos and videos that exposed Jeffrey, Paris, and Jones as his accomplices. Back at the workshop, Frank had already seen all the money Ryan had stashed in his safe. When Ryan returned, Frank was furious. Ryan tried to explain that he had no other choice, that he couldn't bear seeing April suffer. He admitted that he felt responsible for Kevin's death, which is why April's pain affected him so deeply. But Frank told Ryan to stay out of April's life and insisted he come clean to Kate. Ryan refused. He was afraid that Jeffrey might go after his wife and daughter if the truth came out. He reminded Frank that Jeffrey still had allies inside the police department. Later, while Ryan was packing the money into a bag, Kate suddenly walked in. Ryan quickly hid the bag. Kate came to Ryan, determined to learn the truth about April, and about what had really happened 10 years ago. She wanted to know why Ryan had gone to prison. Ryan wanted to tell her everything but stopped himself at the last moment. Once again, he took full responsibility and kept quiet about April's involvement. Meanwhile, Kate gathered all the evidence and sealed it in an envelope, handing it over to her superiors. But she knew it wasn't enough. If they were going to bring down the corrupt officers, they needed a credible witness. Since Timmy, the key person in the case, was an escort, the court wouldn't take her testimony seriously. Kate realized she had to find a solid witness, no matter what. That night, Ryan returned to Jarrett's house, managing to sneak in without being seen by the guards. He offered to return the stolen money in exchange for April's freedom. But Jarrett flatly refused, claiming he had no idea where April was. Ryan didn't believe him. He was sure Jarrett was hiding her. Their conversation escalated into a physical fight. Jarrett attacked, but Ryan wasn't easily overpowered. He fought back, dunked Jarrett's head in a water tub, and demanded to know April's location. Finally, Jarrett admitted she was with Jeffrey. Ryan immediately left to rescue her. But in a shocking twist, we see Jeffrey and April already sitting in a car nearby, watching Ryan leave. It was all a setup. April and Jeffrey had conspired to trap Ryan from the beginning. April's cries for help and her tragic stories were lies, crafted to manipulate Ryan into stealing the money. Her true motive was revenge. She blamed Ryan for her brother Kevin's death. But in reality, the man she was working with, Jeffrey, was the one who had killed Kevin. Later, Jeffrey, wearing gloves, went to Jarrett's house and murdered him, setting it up so Ryan would be blamed for the killing. Back at the workshop, Ryan told Frank that Jarrett had no idea where April was because the real person behind everything was Jeffrey. Frank urged Ryan to hand over the money to Kate. She was now in charge of the department and could handle the situation through legal channels. But Ryan had already made things worse. Without legal help, he knew it was almost certain he'd be sent back to prison. Soon after, Kate arrived at the workshop with Lindsay. She told Ryan that she had discovered the truth about Jeffrey. Hearing this, Ryan finally confessed. He told her Kevin had been unarmed that night, and that Jeffrey had deliberately killed him. Ryan had stayed silent because Jeffrey had threatened to hurt Kate and Lindsay if he talked. Now that Kate knew everything, she refused to abandon Ryan. She told him to return the money so they could resolve the matter legally. Ryan stayed at the workshop with Frank to take care of Lindsay. But danger was closing in. Detectives Paris and Jones, Jeffrey's allies, broke into their superior's office and found the pen drive containing all the incriminating evidence. If that drive made it to court, they were finished. Meanwhile, Jeffrey and April had checked into a hotel. Then Jeffrey got a call from Jones, who told him everything. Kate had given the pen drive to their superiors, and there was overwhelming evidence against them. Enraged, Jeffrey decided they had to eliminate everyone involved: Kate, Ryan, and anyone else threatening to expose them. Afterward, they'd flee the city with the money. Hearing this, April began to regret her decisions. She had only wanted revenge against Ryan, not to risk innocent lives. She realized she couldn't support the corrupt cops any longer. Quickly, she called Ryan and warned him that Jeffrey's people were planning to kill him and Kate. She urged him to escape immediately. But it was already too late. Detective Paris had found Ryan's hideout. He shot Ryan in the leg as soon as he saw him. Frank sprang into action and fired back, managing to shoot Jones, who died on the spot. Devastated by his partner's death, Paris turned his gun on Frank and shot him too. Then, Paris pointed the gun at Lindsay and demanded she hand over the money to Ryan. But Kate had already taken the money and hidden it. Now, with no weapons and no escape, Ryan had only one option left: try to reason with Paris. Ryan complied and put down his weapon. Meanwhile, Kate, who was in her car, heard about the shooting over the radio. As soon as she got the news, she turned the car toward the workshop, but by the time she arrived, it was too late. Paris had already taken Lindsay hostage and left with her. A while later, Jeffrey called Ryan and demanded the stolen money in exchange for Lindsay's safety. This time, Ryan asked Kate for help. They came up with a plan. Kate would focus on rescuing Lindsay, while Ryan would go to Jeffrey and hand over the money. At the hotel, Paris handcuffed Lindsay to a table. Around the same time, Ryan arrived and met Jeffrey. The two stood face to face, both holding guns. Jeffrey pointed his weapon at Ryan and demanded the money. Ryan knew he had to stall, to give Kate enough time to reach Lindsay. So he tried to delay the exchange. He said he wanted to see Lindsay first. But Jeffrey refused and ordered him to drop his gun. Meanwhile, Lindsay was trying everything she could to free herself. Using the escape techniques her father had taught her, she managed to unlock the cuffs. She quietly opened the door and tried to sneak out. But Paris spotted her and chased after her. Just then, Kate arrived and fired her weapon, shooting Paris before he could harm Lindsay. She rushed her to the car, made her get in, and firmly told her not to open the door for anyone but her or her father. Back at the meeting spot, Ryan had already dropped his weapon and surrendered. But Jeffrey had no intention of just taking the money and walking away. He raised his gun to kill Ryan, when suddenly April appeared and shot Jeffrey with the very gun Ryan had thrown aside. But April still harbored deep resentment toward Ryan. She aimed the gun at him, ready to shoot. At that moment, Kate stepped in and told April the full truth. April was furious, believing that if Ryan hadn't asked Kevin to help with that robbery all those years ago, her brother would still be alive and their lives would be very different. Ryan admitted his mistake. Kevin had been a close friend to him too, and losing him had left a permanent scar. He expressed genuine remorse for everything that had happened. Seeing Ryan so filled with regret finally softened April's heart. She lowered the gun. Soon after, the police arrived and took April into custody. Meanwhile, Ryan was being praised across the department for exposing the network of corrupt officers. The very next day, Kate was promoted to lieutenant for her bravery. And finally, after 10 long years, Ryan was reunited with his family and could live in peace. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.